So you're saying you have no bearing on this incident?
Yep, just like I told you yesterday, partner. You could have saved us both some time if you remembered.
Oh, I remember what you told me, Mr. Marshall.
Then why'd you ask?
Because I wanted to give you the chance to tell the truth. And before we go on, I just want to say I'm sorry.
What do you mean?
When we examined the evidence room, we found a single clear fingerprint. Not just any old fingerprint, this one had blood on it. We had it analyzed by the police department forensics team. It's yours, Jake Marshall.
Are you for real? I guard that place. My fingerprints must be all over it. And if you'd done your homework, you'd know about the other blood print, made by someone wearing a glove. Whoever made that one made one where my fingerprint was by chance.
How did you know about the other print?
I like to keep up to date with the case reports. Bottom line is, that there security tape is your only solid evidence, and you can't find me anywhere on it. You can't tie me to the crime.
The witness is right, although his disco operation is not appreciated.
Go on, Mr. Wright. Prove that I'm in that video. I dare you.
First, I just want to know one thing.
Shoot.
Is that middle locker yours?
Yep.
Good. Then I can say with complete confidence you were there when this murder happened. Not only that, I can point you out on the tape. If we look at your locker later on, we see that it's changed. There's a piece of cloth sticking out of it. So you must have opened your locker at the time of this recording.
Hold your horses there, partner. Anyone could have opened that locker. What makes you think it was me? Why are you all looking at me like that?
Sorry to disappoint you, Mr. Marshall, but only you could open the locker. The electronic lock is coded to your fingerprint.
Is that some kind of joke?
No joke, Mr. Marshall. Take my word for it. If that locker was open, then you had to be there. Which brings me to exactly where you were. Well, it doesn't take a genius to figure it out. It's a small room, there's nowhere to hide, and one of the figures is accounted for. Which leaves him.
What, that's the victim?
Gloves off, Mr. Marshall. I put it to you that the figure in the coat is you.
Not bad. You almost had me there, partner.
What?
It seems to me like your whole case is resting on circumstantial evidence. You might have proved that I opened my locker, but you can't say any more than that. If you're gonna say that's me, you're gonna have some sort of link between him and my locker. I'm gonna call your bluff. I say you ain't got one.
He's right, isn't he?
What if we think about it another way? I mean, why would he open his locker? He obviously didn't plan to. Got it! Objection! Mr. Marshall, I've been looking at this from completely the wrong angle. I've been thinking about how well you would have had to plan that masquerade so as not to be caught on camera, forgetting the whole time that what's on the tape is not what you intended to happen. For whatever reason, you entered the evidence room that day disguised as Detective Goodman, taking careful note of the security camera's movements, and you opened Goodman's locker. But then something happened, something that you didn't plan on. Officer Meekins. He interrupted your operation and demanded to see your ID card. You couldn't show him your ID because he'd registered Goodman's on the way in, and you couldn't show him Goodman's ID because it had Goodman's photo on it. Cornered and out of options, you decided to scare him off at knife point. But you didn't reckon with Officer Meekins' determination. He lunged at you, cutting himself in the process and smearing the coat you were wearing with blood. What to do now? You couldn't walk out of there with blood on your coat, so before making your escape, you hastily shoved the coat into your locker.
Well, man's gotta know when he's being beat. I'll take my hat off to you, partner.
Does this mean you confess?
Yeah, it was me. I stole Goodman's wallet to get his ID. I dressed up like him and opened his locker. I even dodged my way around the security camera so my face wouldn't be seen. And then Meekins turned up, and I threatened him, and it turned ugly. Not my proudest moment, but that day was my last chance.
Care to elaborate?
Not a chance, partner. You can charge me with what you like, and I'll come quietly. But what I was doing in there goes to me to my grave, especially after what happened to Goodman.
So it must have been you that left Goodman's wallet in the car park.
I'd reckon no one asked any questions if the wallet was found where he was killed. I just didn't know how much trouble it would cause you guys with the whole double murder thing.
So if you could answer the question we brought you here for.
There was no murder in the evidence room at 5:15 on the 21st.
So with our 2 murders reduced to 1, this case just became incredibly simple.
But hang on, there may have been no murder in the evidence room, but we still have unexamined evidence to deal with.
At another trial maybe, but the connection between this case and the evidence room incident has been completely disproven. We can now continue with the car park incident. Did I say continue? I meant finish.
No!
Mr. Wright,
Your Honor, in the circumstances, I think now's the time to hear your verdict.
Quite right, Mr. Edgeworth. And although there are still many questions yet to be answered, they are not relevant to the case on trial, and in light of this new evidence, this court finds the defendant, Lana Skye...
hold it!
Emma?
Your Honor, the defense has a scientific objection.
What is the meaning of this?
Please, I have a theory of how these cases may still be related. Just give me a minute of your time.
With a case as serious as this, it would be unwise to leave any loose ends. You may continue, but this theory had better have some basis in fact.
Mr. Marshall, I assume you'll now admit that you left the blood print on your locker.
Guess there's no point in denying it now.
And there we have our problem.
With what?
With the second bloody handprint, which was found unhidden 2 lockers down. I inspected that print personally, and there were no fingerprints, which means whoever left it was wearing gloves. And since neither officer was wearing gloves, the print must have been made by a third party. I'm saying that this unidentified handprint couldn't possibly have been made while Mr. Marshall was in the room. Because of him.
What? Not that cardboard eyesore again.
I think you know where I'm going with this, Mr. Edgeworth. The blue badger was standing right in front of the very locker that the print was found. The only logical conclusion is that the print was made before the incident occurred.
What does the prosecution have to say to this?
Actually, Your Honor, the prosecution must concede that the defense has a point. The print could not have been left by either of the officers. And there's another problem. Once it was found that we're no longer dealing with a second murder, we were forced to reconsider the evidence, and we left something out.
We did?
Indeed, Miss Skye. If you recall, a substantial amount of blood was detected on the floor, and I mean substantial. Far too much to be the result of a simple arm wound.
So what are you saying, Mr. Edgeworth?
I think there may have been a murder in the evidence room, but at a different time, and both blood traces are related to it.
But Mr. Edgeworth, who exactly are you claiming was murdered?
Bruce Goodman.
What? How many times can this one man die?
I know it sounds far-fetched, Your Honor, but it does make sense.
But the chief prosecutor was seen stabbing Goodman, and the evidence supports this.
I know, Your Honor, which is why I'd like to suggest a new possibility. When Lana stabbed Goodman, he was already dead.
So when, pray tell, was Goodman's real murder?
That's easy to figure out, Your Honor. If the murder took place in the evidence room, then the murderer must have used an ID card.
Ah, the ID list.
Goodman's ID was stolen, which means he must have entered the room with the murderer.
And since the unidentified handprint was hidden behind the blue badger, it must have been made before Meekins brought in the blue badger at 4:50, which would make the murderer one of the top 2 entries on the list.
But Mr. Edgeworth, the second entry from the top is yours, at 4:40.
Never knew you had it in you, partner.
Yes, thank you, witness. It doesn't take a genius to work out that it couldn't have been me. Meekins came in 10 minutes after me. I couldn't possibly have committed the murder, cleaned up the blood, and made away with the body in time.
Which leaves the entry at 420, ID number 7777777.
7 sevens? He's gotta be the luckiest guy in the world.
Mr. Edgeworth, whose ID number is that?
We don't know, Your Honor.
What?
Unfortunately, that ID number belongs to an executive officer. We can't investigate it without a formal charge.